Hello friends, welcome back. Today is Saturday, February 6th, and it's actually the evening. I normally like to do these on Saturday mornings, but the past couple weeks just hasn't worked out that way, so it's good to talk to you anyway. So today I am enjoying a pipe this evening. This is my Briar Spirit two-faced pipe that I call Janice, and if you can figure out why, you'll smile. And in Janice, I'm smoking Standard Tobacco's new blend Warhorse. This was just released. I pre-ordered it and received it on February 4th. I've only had this, I think, maybe the third bowl, and I'm not ready to really talk about it yet. It's a complex blend, and I need to spend a bit more time understanding it. If you want to hear a really nice set of first impressions, Alan Wood has done a tin opening and some first impression video that was really quite nice. If you don't know Alan's YouTube channel, you should check him out, and I'll put a link down below to that particular video. Alan's a great guy, and he puts up some very entertaining videos, talks about a wide range of topics, not just pipes and tobacco, but there's a lot of pipes and tobacco in there, so I highly recommend him. My apologies for the dog barking. They've been a bit, they've been barking tonight. So I had an interesting day today. My wife and I went to the Mercer Museum in Bucks County. The Mercer Museum is a really fascinating place. It was built by a man named Henry Mercer, and Henry Mercer was an archaeologist, among other things. He's a very interesting person, and he collected a massive amount of stuff, and this museum is dedicated to what I believe would be called pre-industrial revolution stuff. It's tools. It would be pre-industrial revolution tools, but in a broad definition of a tool. So not just drills and planes and things like that, but kitchen utensils and lights and oil lamps. And I took some pictures, and I'm going to try to patch them into this video just to share a little bit of this with you. But the structure itself is fascinating. It was designed and built by Mercer. And it's a poured concrete structure, but it's a 7-story tall poured concrete structure. The entire center of it is open, so there's just this large atrium, and you can look up 7 stories. And all of the exhibits are sort of spiraling around this central atrium. And so as you're walking, on your one side there would be openness and like all the stuff that's hanging in the middle. And then to the other side there are rooms which are glassed off, so you can't go into them, but you can look in and see the items. And each room would have a different theme, and there were very wide-ranging themes from brick making and stone cutting, candy making, leather work, hat making, agricultural things. There was mining, barrel making, coopering, just any trade that you can imagine, and not just any trade, but any sort of activity of life that you could imagine is in some way captured in this museum. And just to stand on the bottom floor and look up and see all this stuff was really a almost dizzying effect that it had. It was the most magnificent clutter I've ever seen. And I just love this kind of stuff, so I was in heaven. I of course was very interested in seeing some pipes or pipe making tools or tobacco harvesting equipment, cigar manufacturing equipment. Pennsylvania, of course, is known for growing tobacco, and it's one of the earliest places in the U.S. In fact, I think it's the first place in the U.S. where tobacco was rolled into cigars. So a very long history of tobacco in Pennsylvania. So I expected that to be a part of the exhibit, and unfortunately there were 2 rooms that had a couple of pipes in them. One was just sort of, they were there almost as an accent, just a couple of clay pipes. And the other one seemed to be a bit more of a design where it had some pipe racks and some clay pipes hanging in it. There were some tobacco tins and a couple of cigar boxes. But there were other odd things in this room, like there was a diver's helmet and there was a wood plane and other stuff. It was a collection of stuff rather than an exhibit on tobacco. And what's really odd is that every room that I looked at today, like there was a room on brick making, and there would be a sign on the side of brick making, and then a little list of number one, and there was a picture of the exhibit, like a line drawing of the exhibit with numbers on it, and then you would read number one was a saw that was used and so on. These exhibits weren't labeled. The ones with the pipes, there was no label, there was nothing, and I thought that was just really strange and perhaps a sign of political correctness. I don't know. I didn't ask anyone about it, but it was unfortunate. But I did take those pictures. There was also a very nice pipe that I took a picture of, which had nothing to do with tobacco, and it was proudly displayed down on the first floor. And I find this really fascinating. It was a wooden water pipe, and there was a display on how these things were bored out and reamed and how they were fit together. I never really thought about it. I knew that there were wooden pipes, but meaning wooden water pipes, wooden pipes to flow water through to get it from one place to another. But I didn't realize just how big they were. I don't know. I never really thought about their design. So at least that pipe was prominently displayed, if not our favorite type. So there was a lot of other stuff there. There was a room of woodworking that I took some pictures of. I'll show those here. Honestly, I could have stood in front of this window for a day and still not been able to comprehend what was in there. It was just complete information overload. For an old tool lover like myself, I went into shock when I looked through this window. There were in another part of the museum, there were some old wood lathes. There was one in that room, but there was also one that was huge and was out in the open. And it was really interesting because it was indistinguishable from a modern wood lathe, barring the fact that it was made from wood. But it was a large wooden structure that had a tailstock on it that was very reminiscent of a modern tailstock. And then there was a drive head, a headstock. And the headstock was connected by a very large leather belt to a huge flywheel. And by huge, I mean it was probably about 4 or 5 feet in diameter. And that flywheel had a crank on it. And the way this worked is an apprentice would stand there and would crank the flywheel to drive the lathe while the craftsman stood there with his lathe tools and turned whatever parts needed to be turned. So I suppose that's a step up from the sprung pole type lathes where you have to pedal as you're turning. But it's fascinating, and really, other than a motor, there was nothing that would distinguish that lathe, which was probably early 1800s, from a modern day wood lathe. The design was the same, just different materials and no motor. And the most interesting thing I saw today was a machine, and I'll again try to put a picture in here. This machine was designed for clock making, and it was designed to cut the gears cut the teeth on the gears used in the clocks. And this had to be very precise, very repeatable. And the way this machine worked was there's a disc with many holes in it in a very particular pattern, and by placing an arm with a pin on the end of it in the right hole, it would give you the correct gear ratio, so that as you turned it, you would turn just one gear at a time, and then you would cut the gear and turn it again and cut it again. Similar to what a rotary table would do on a mill today. The amazing thing about this machine is that it was from 1670. And just looking at this, it looks like it doesn't look like a new machine, but it certainly doesn't look like it was designed in 1670. So just fascinating. If you're ever in the eastern Pennsylvania area, in the Bucks County area, and you've got a chance to go to the Mercer Museum, I highly, highly recommend it. So the weekend from here on out is looking fairly calm and quiet, and I apologize because I'm actually trying to look something up here as I talk to you. I wanted to mention a few things about subscribers and such. I've gotten a few more subscribers in the past week, and I want to thank you. One thing that I did want to mention is that it's difficult for me. I was for a while sending a thank you to everybody that subscribed, and that was quite easy at the beginning, but something has changed that I don't understand, and the way YouTube is working, I can no longer identify who's a new subscriber versus who's an old subscriber, and I'm getting emails, but the emails don't always match the list that's on the YouTube page, so it's a little bit difficult for me to know for certain who I've said hello to, who I've thanked, and who I haven't. So if I haven't thanked you, I apologize for that, and I'm actually going to just, from here on out, not be sending out those messages because I can't figure out how to do it appropriately. But I do really appreciate the subscriptions, and I also really appreciate the comments. The last week's video generated a lot of really interesting comments and insightful comments, even a couple of video responses, which I greatly appreciate. So thank you for that. That interaction is really, as I've said before, the reason why I'm doing this, and I do enjoy it for that reason. Last thing, I've been toying with whether or not I want to actually go into this or not, but sort of as a follow-on from last week's video on art versus tool. And I've seen a lot of tools today, and I would say some of them were quite artful. Sorry, this pipe has an awful gurgle. That's why we have a pipe cleaner. So you might remember in the last video I was complaining about folks that buy up things like old hand saws and paint scenery on them, and then go and hang them on the wall as a piece of art, and I really don't like that because I think that it's disrespectful to the tool. Well, I ordered, I won an eBay auction for a lot of 5 pipes, and let me start off by saying the reason I even bid on this auction was this pipe right here. I'm not going to say too much about it because it will eventually be the subject of a video, but this is it's a jumbo. It's a custom built type pipe, and I don't have a custom built. I've been looking for one for a while, and this was a nice looking one. It's in terrible shape in terms of cake buildup and the stem and all that, but I can fix this. So I'm really happy to get this, and what I paid for the lot of pipes, this was well worth it. So if this was the only pipe that I got, I'd be happy. But it was a lot of 5, and they were not identified in the ad. I couldn't tell what they were based on the pictures, and it doesn't matter because I got this guy. That's all that I wanted. But if the other ones might have been gray bows or something like that, and they're perfectly fine and fun to refinish, or maybe it would be a real gem. Who knows? Because they just weren't identified. Well, I got them in, and I was looking at them, and I've got a few of them here, and they're all three billiards, one stemless bent billiard, and I'm looking at them. Let me put this down. And I noticed something rather unusual. I noticed that they all had a very similar mark on the bottom. That one's not too bad. Yes, that's right. There's a hole right through the bottom on these. And I don't know if I'll be able to get this into focus for you, but someone decided to take these beautiful pipes and nailed them to a wall. So as near as I can tell, this pipe was put on a wall like this, or like this, and had a nail driven through it. All four of these, not the one I wanted, this one is okay, but all four of the others, some of them are split from where the nail went through. This one even has a hole through the stem, and that's not a bite hole, that's a drilled hole to nail this to a wall. So these were decorations in probably a restaurant or something, and it's a darn shame because, you know, for all intents and purposes, these pipes are now trash. I might try to patch them just for fun. Certainly they have no value, but that's the kind of thing that, you know, I just don't understand. I just don't understand why you would take a perfectly good tool and turn it into something that, or use it in a way that makes it impossible to use it as for its intended purpose. Anyway, I've beat that horse to death, so I won't bother talking about it anymore. But I just had to share that with you. I thought it was rather ironic that after my rant last week, I go and come across these rather artistic items. But I got this guy, so I'm happy. Anyway, I hope you're all having a really good weekend, and you have a great Sunday tomorrow. Enjoy the Super Bowl if you're into that. I don't have a horse in the race, so I'll watch it, but I'll be happy either way. So until next week, we've got the second part of the stem cleaning video coming up on Wednesday, and I'll be back on hopefully Saturday morning. We'll see if I can get back on schedule between now and then. So until then, take care of yourself, and I will look forward to talking to you again soon. Goodbye now.